Thank you, Mr. President. May we now recognize the distinguished gentleman from Isabela and Davao, Senator RAFFY Tulfo, to continue with this
Yes,
interpretation.
please proceed, Senator Tulfo, and to answer now is our distinguished Secretary, Secretary Yulo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Uh, Good afternoon to you, Madam Secretary. Sabi nga po kanina ni Senate President, what is the DNR planning to do? So in the past 6 years, this will define who you are, your kind of leadership, your character, para pretty much malaman po ng taong bayan kung ano pong klaseng tao si DNR Secretary. Dito po magkaalaman tayo. What is your stand sa National Land Use Act?
Sir, this, with all due respect, Mr. President and Excellency Senator Tulfo, we have been in support of the passing of the National Land Use Act since I have been in my previous positions in the civil society community.
Very good.
And we have been waiting for this long-standing act to actually pass.
So therefore, you will support this chamber. You will support us. You will support me to push na sana this time around yung National Land Use Act ay may pasa na because 4 na presidente na po ang nagpo-push na mapasa na to pero hindi mapapasa-pasa for whatever reason, one way or the other, hindi po natutuloy. So kung kayo po ay susuporta, magpapakita ko kayo ng suporta na wala kayong kinakatakutan, I suppose na may papasa na po itong National Land Use Act.
Yes, Mr. Senator, we are in favor of the passing of the National Land Use Act.
At least alam ko po, for the record, kayo po ay supportive na may pasa po yung National Land Use Act. Very well. Thank you. Very well said po. Now, balik na po tayo doon sa Masungi. Nasabi niyo po kanina through Senator Cynthia Villar, ewan ko kung tama yung pagka-quote sa inyo, kasi po yung mga criminal elements, kahit na criminal sila, meron din po silang karapatan at kailangan dumaan sa due process yung panggugulo na ginagawa nila pamamaril sa mga ranger, whether that is private forest ranger or from the government, their rights has to be respected. Kahit na mamaril sila mamaril, kailangan pabayaan lang sila dahil meron due process at huwag silang awatin dahil may due process. Yan po ang pagkakaintindi ko. Pwede ba paki-explain po, Madam Secretary?
Thank you very much, Mr. Senator. If we may just clarify, we recognize that at this point, this is a police action that needs to be taken. The DNR does not have the authority to conduct a police action.
Okay.
And therefore, Secretary Benher Abalos has very generously and very wisely po offered to work with us in order to settle this matter as far as the police action is concerned. If I may, Mr. Senator, very respectfully, the Masungi Georeserve issue is a very complex issue. When I came into this office, I started to inquire about the background and history of this particularly, controversial agreement. This has been ongoing for the last 5 years in terms of whether or not this agreement should be respected, who should be part of it, etc. Whether in fact it is in contravention of the Constitution or not. I do support, very respectfully, Mr. Senator, that the Senate and the congressional investigations take place so that all of these details, these complexities may be put forward in full transparency for everyone to understand how complex this issue has become. We are not going to be able to resolve the full complexity here, I am very convinced, very respectfully, sir, during this interpellation. However, we are preparing, as I indicated in my written response to the letter that you have mentioned, we are preparing and we are very willing to cooperate with both the Senate and the House. I understand there has been a motion already from Senator Risa Ontiveros to open an investigation in the Senate. And we are also aware that in the lower house in Congress, Representative Dino Tanwatco, Representative Jack Duavit, Representative Georgia Garcia will also open an investigation to this matter. The DNR will cooperate fully with both investigations po, Mr. Senator.
Okay, very well said. At asahan ko po yan, yung tinatawag niyong cooperation. break muna tayo dyan sa Masungi. Let's talk about figures. 10 billion pesos po ang inyong operation expenses and then nadagdagan po ng 2 billion support for operation. 12 billion para lamang sa operation. And then, ang nakapagtataka po, nagsingit pa po ng 90 million. Pagdating po sa lower house, inaprubahan po sa upper house, dito po sa Senado, ang laki-laki na nga po ng budget, 12 billion, dinagdagan pa po talaga ng 90 million para mapunta po sa Office of the Secretary, 60 million. Sa opisina niyo po, 60 million, 10 million para sa mining monitoring, and 20 million para sa national water. Hindi pa po ba sapat ang 12 billion na operation expense na kailangan pa po humingi ng another 90 million para sa inyong tanggapan, Madam Secretary?
With all due respect, Mr. Senator, the DNR is tasked to manage trillions of natural resources in value.
Okay.
We are but number 12 po in the order of magnitude in terms of the budget of the government. There is a very severe lack po of capacity in terms of being able to monitor and supervise different areas of the DNR's work. So the additional amounts that were referred to po by you, respectfully, sir, were really additional amounts to help us, number one, with water security, which has been an indicated priority of this administration. And secondly po, in terms of mining, that was for instruments, as I understand it, that is a ground penetrating radar instrument that is badly needed by our Mines and Geoscience Bureau in order to actually conduct their investigations as to mining and geostrategic resources for the country.
Okay, so what you're saying is, yung pong bilyones, na 12 billion, ay doon po para sa water security, mining, radar.
Sir po, the additional amounts for the mining and geoscience and for the water security, those were additional amounts po.
Opo. Okay.
The Office of the Secretary's budget cascades all the way down to the regions po in terms of operations. Hindi po lahat yan ginagasta ng Office ng Secretary. Kinakascade po yan pababa to all the regions to be able to operate and conduct their mandate.
Opo. Okay, can you give me a breakdown, quick breakdown dito po sa 12 billion? Kasi meron na po 10 billion operation expense. Sana po sinagad yun na lang. Nagdagdag po ng 2 billion support for operation.
Andito.
At while you're there, while you're at it, at tinitingnan po yung mga dokumento ninyo, meron po kayong confidential and intel and extraordinary expense fund, 13.9 million.
Yes po, if I can just specify in terms of the NWRB, the Water Resource Vulnerability Assessment Program, that was part of the additional amounts of 20 million. The Palawan Council for Sustainable Development po, additional amount for 35. Mines and Geoscience po, this is part of the Geological Risk Reduction and Resilience Program that is related to the disaster program of the government. I will give you the breakdown po, if I can just have
I'm
the-
sorry, Madam Secretary.
Yes, sir.
12 billion operation expense. Sana po, kinuha na lang dyan yung sinasabi niyong para sa Office of the Secretary na 16 million, mining 10 million, national water 20 million. Bakit hindi lang po dyan kumuha sa 12 billion total for operation expense? Huwag niyo po muna sagutin yan. Now, meron po kayong 13.9 confidential and intel and extraordinary expense. Now, dapat po, kung ako pong tatanungin, with this amount, tayo niyo po sigurong mag-tap ng network of intelligence para alamin kung sino-sino po talaga itong mga taong nanggugulo sa loob ng Masungi Reserve. And you can use that money with that 13 million, that's a lot of money, para alamin sino-sino itong mga grupong ito, and then ipasa niyo po yung information na yan sa PNP, sa Army, sa Navy, sa Marines.
Yes,
Bakit po hanggang ngayon, hindi niyo pa rin po maturo-turo kung sino, who are these people behind sa panggugulo diyan sa loob ng Masungi at sino-sino itong mga armed groups na gumagala-gala dyan na up to now, even while we speak, nandoon pa rin po sila ng gugulo at namamaril at they fire randomly at nangaharas po ng mga tao nandoon sa paligid. So please answer po.
Thank you very much, sir. With all due respect po, as you know, I am just newly confirmed in this position. These past events occurred not during my time po in this position. However, we have obviously deferred at this point to Secretary Benher Abalos on his request and on his offer to actually conduct the investigation as to what is going on po talaga po in this area. There are some initial findings po, and we are working together with the group of SILG in order to come up with a list of, how do I say, of participants in these types of activities in the area. At this point po, I'm not at liberty and we do not have a full knowledge as to who these personalities are. However, there is a history, there are names, and I'm deferring at this point to the investigation that's being conducted by the police po, in terms of identifying the characters and taking the necessary action.
So what's the status of the investigation being conducted by the DILG na naipasa niyo po sa kanila? Sabi niyo kasi po bago lamang kayo sa inyong posisyon. At by the way, bago din po ako sa Senado, pero I know for a fact na kapag meron kang pinasa na trabaho mo naman yon sa another agency for help, dapat you should be on top of that.
Yes po.
Whatever that pinasa mo doon sa agency na yon, like the DILG in this case.
Thank you very much po. I will be meeting with Secretary Benher Abalos shortly. As you know po, I have just arrived from being designated by the President as head of delegation to the climate change negotiations. And so I don't want to have this type of conversation really remotely with the Secretary. So we are due to meet po, and definitely if the next cabinet meeting we will be meeting. I will be seeing him there po, as with your brother po, si Secretary Erwin, who is my seatmate in the cabinet meeting po.
Okay. The MOA was entered into by DNR and Masungi. DNR now saying MOA is illegal, so mali ang DNR in entering into this MOA.
Sir, at this point po, the nature of the MOA and the history of the MOA is what we are trying to finally establish. There are conditions that were stipulated and terms that were stipulated in the MOA that really contravene certain provisions of our Constitution and other types of legal declarations. So at this point po, we will put forward what has been the developing opinion that that instrument will have to be revised somehow if we are to continue with this kind of arrangement with the group that is currently in possession of this area.
Okay. So with that, ang gusto ko po, by next week, malaman ko po namin kung ano na po ang sitwasyon ng kaguluhan dyan sa Masungi, kung kailan po yan ma-address, kailan na po natin mapalayas yung mga armed groups dyan po sa loob ng Masungi, na yung report na nakarating sa akin, just imagine, M16, M203, meron sila, samantalang yung ating mga pulis, pagpupunta dyan, naka 9mm lang, they are outnumbered, and they are, of course, pagdating po sa puwersa, pagdating po sa firepower, sila po ay talo. So I need to know who are those people. Kaya po kanina, tinalakay ko po yung confidential funds ninyo na sana po magamit nyo po yan para alamin sino-sino po itong mga grupong nanggugulo unless kung ayaw nyo po talaga malaman. Hindi po kayo, sabi nyo bago lang kayo, baka meron po kayong mga tao dyan na matagal na po dyan sa DNR na maaring kasabwat, maaring friendship, maaring loko-loko na kayo po'y binubulag o kayo po'y nililigaw.
Please be assured, Senator RAFFY, that we will be getting to the bottom of this and we will be submitting that report to you. We would like this to be formal and therefore we will base it on the report from the DILG po. So very respectfully, we are also wanting to get to the bottom of this issue for final resolution. Thank you very much po for your questions. We hope that this will in fact advance and accelerate the investigation that is going on po.
Marami po dyan mga Yusek na panahon-panahon dinosaur, nandiyan na po sa pwesto. Pwede ho ba pakiimbestigahan yung mga Yusek na yan? At sa tinagal-tagal na nila, mukhang nagkakaroon silang dementia, hindi na po nila nagagawa yung tamang trabaho nila. Maybe it's about time na ma-assess nyo po sino-sino yung mga Yusek na yan na pagkatagal-tagal ng panahon nandiyan pa rin. Siguro po, it's about time na reassess nyo po yung mga posisyon dyan sa DNR na maari po, I believe you, kayo po ay diretso, gusto nyo po mapabago ang DNR, pero how can you do that kung yung nasa likod nyo po ay mga taong, sabihin na natin, salbahe. Okay? At kayo po ay pinaikot lamang.
Thank you very much po. That advice is well taken. And please be assured that we are trying to build a team that have the same kind of vision, that have the same, hopefully the same integrity and commitment to the mission of the DNR.
I don't think so, ma'am. Sorry. You cannot talk about integrity of some of your people in your department. I have, right now I'm not going to mention names, I have with me proof to show you na marami ka mga tiwaling tauhan dyan sa loob ng DNR.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Senator. We would very much welcome that kind of information in terms of our trying to build a team within the DNR.
Kaya nga po, yung mga nasa paligid mo ng mga USEC, kinakailangan po, i-reassess niyo po sila. Kailangan po siguro gumawa kayo ng lifestyle check tungkol sa mga buhay-buhay nila, kung sino sila. You have really to assess who they are. Kasi nga naman, ma'am, kahit na gusto niyo gumawa ng tamang trabaho, pero yung nasa likod ninyo ay gumagawa ng kalokohan at binubulag kayo, binubukulan kayo, sayang lang po yung mga ginagawa niyo ang kabutihan para sa inyo pong departamento.
We deeply appreciate this, Senator Tulfo, and we hope that we can receive the information from you for our use in the investigation.
Marami po sa inyo dyan, ng mga tauhan ninyo, nakikipagsabwatan po sa mga illegal miners. Alam niyo po ba yan? Don't tell me na hindi niyo po alam. Don't tell me hindi nakarating sa inyo ganong klaseng impormasyon. Marami po dyan. Andito po ngayon, kasama niyo siguro. Hindi ko po tinitingnan mga kasama niyo. Pero may nakikita po akong tauhan niyo dyan na tiwali at kasama po, kasabwat po ng mga illegal miners. I'm not looking at them right now, pero tingnan niyo po sa likod niyo kung sino-sino po mga kasama niyo. Natanggal niyo po yung face mask. Baka mas makikita niyo po na mabuti.
Thank you very much, sir. That is very well taken po.
Okay. Sige po. Gusto ko po, ang sa akin lamang po, alam ko po na gusto niyo pong mapatino yung isang departamento na tinatawag, isa sa pinakatawaling departamento, I'm sorry to say this, sa ating gobyerno. You want to clean it, and the way to do it is umpisahan niyo po yung paglilinis sa mga taong naghahawak ng sensitive position. Start it with your USECs and ASECs.
We hope for your kind assistance and support po in this
Thank you po.
endeavor.
Thank you po. Now, last na lamang po. Ano po yung status ng Kaliwa Dam, Madam Secretary?
Pero meron na ito.
FPIC pero usapan na lang po ang pending.
As per our latest information and our records po, good Senator, there is already a free and prior informed consent with the IPs. And we are now awaiting the completion of a special agreement on protected areas. So MWSS po has already secured a PAMBI endorsement for the Quezon area. And in the Rizal area, the SAPA application is already under proclamation number 573 by PAMBI Rizal. was elevated already to DNR Region 4A for review and endorsement to central office. So ang naiiwan na lang po is this work on the special agreement on protected areas na kailangan tapusin po ng MWSS at ng DNR.
So yung mga indigenous people, yung mga dumagat, nakakuha na po ang DNR ng informed consent. Anong ibig sabihin po ng informed consent?
Proponent po yung MWS po.
Sir, ang MWSS po ang kumuha ng
Okay.
informed consent.
At ano po nakapaloob doon sa informed consent at bakit po, at kung sila po ay nagbigay ng kanilang consent, pumayag, and what is the reason, what's in it for them?
Sir, we are not going to answer for MWSS po, pero in the process, as part of the...
Sorry, madam, you have to know. That's why I said you have to be on top of everything. You have to protect these IPs. Kasi po, wala po nagpo-protect sa kanila. So kung hindi niyo po magkikialam dito, kahit na sino pong private companies, private entities, papasok na lamang at palalayasin po yung mga IPs at dahil may consent na po mula doon sa mga nangimasok ng mga private entities, hindi na po kayo makialam. No. Yung katungkulan niyo po, ma'am, to protect the rights of the IPs.
Sir, kindly allow me to clarify po.
Apa.
When I said I'm not answering for MWSS, MWSS is the proponent.
Apa.
The DNR is the one that will be granting the ECC for this area. So I cannot speak for MWSS because we are not the proponent po. However,
Pero at least ma'am, pwede niyo ba malaman kung ano po yung deal ng between the MWSS and the IPs at bakit sila pumayag? Like, what's in it for the IPs?
sir, if you'll allow me po, I will
Sige po, ma'am.
give you the details.
Sige
So
po,
the memorandum of agreement between the indigenous cultural communities for Rizal and Quezon was signed on December 10, 2021 and January 28, 2022 respectively. Disturbance compensation of 80 million for Rizal and 80 million for Quezon was part of that agreement. And annual compensation during the operations po of 10 million for Rizal and 36 million for the Quezon IP communities is also part of the agreement. The certification of precondition was approved by NCIP and Bank on September 19, 2022. On November 7, 2022, the certification precondition was officially transmitted to MWSS because they are the proponent po. NCIP, together with MWSS, is currently conducting the final validation of affected IP families. There are 15 IP families to be relocated as of October 2022 based on the latest MWSS survey po.
Okay. Kasi po nakatanggap ako ng information na ito pong mga IPs, sila po ay tinakot. Karamihan sa kanila ay kulang po sa pinag-aralan, kulang po sa kalaman. Kaya nga, for the third time, sinasabi ko nga po, sana lahat po ng klaseng transaksyon, kailangan you are on top of it. Sabihin na natin po, private entity MWSS, nandiyan yung NICP na nagbabantay doon po sa transaksyon between MWSS and the IPs. Di po ba dapat alam nyo rin po kung ano po yung nagaganap na transaksyon? Alam din nyo po kung ano po yung damdamin at kapalit na ibinibigay po sa mga IPs. Now, sabi nyo po, merong financial considerations. Magkano po yung perang ibinibigay per family? Doon po sa binanggit nyo ng mga milyones. And do we have the names? Or you don't even have to mention the names of those IPs, but at least how many families? And do we have their signature? And when they were signing that they were agreeing, meron ho bang mga abogado at public attorney's office ban lang na para bantayan ang karapatan ng mga IPs na po ipirma? Kasi in so many ways, yung po mga IPs, tinatakot po sila, napipilitan po silang pumirma. Dahil nga po, may abogado, kuminsan daw po, may kasama para pong sibilyan na may nakasukbit na baril habang pinapapirma po yung mga IPs. Di po ba dapat habang pumipirma yung mga IPs, kung ano man yung deal na yan, nandiyan po yung taga-gobyerno natin, nandiyan yung public attorney's office para basahin po yung nakalagay po doon sa kontrata at nandun din po yung ating PNP para palayasin kung meron man doon mga nakadisukbit na baril para harasin itong mga IPs upang pumayag na pumirma.
Sir, with all due respect po, two government offices are part of this negotiation for the memorandum of agreement for free and prior informed consent. The IPs are represented by the NCIP. They have lawyers po on the NCIP that actually make the representations for the IP communities. The other government office is the MWSS po. And so government is represented po, and the representation of the IPs is through a government office as well, which is the NCIP. There are 15 IP families, all in all. In Rizal, they will be getting 1 million each for the IP communities. In Quezon, 1 million each for the 36 IP communities as well. So there is a breakdown po that we have here. It's just a summary. We can request po for the full agreement to be made available to you, sir, so that you can fully peruse the terms and conditions.
Ito po'y brinot up ko na nung last hearing natin. Sana po, next time kapag kayo po ay nagkipag-deal sa mga IPs, I'm not saying na hindi na pagkakatiwalaan tong NCIP. Kasi po, kumitiwala po ang IP sa NCIP, hindi na po sana sila lumapit sa akin. Bakit lumapit pa rin sila sa akin despite the fact na nandiyan na pala yung NCIP nung sila po ay pinapipirma nung isang dokumento na sila ay makakatanggap ng milyones? Why would they still come to me? So, ibig sabihin, medyo meron pong problema rito. Now, doon po sa 1 million, bawat pamilya, 1 million here, 1 million there. Nasabi din po sa akin na inooperan po itong mga IPs, kapalit daw po ay bahay at lupa. Siguro po, itong 1 million, pagbigay sa kanilang 1 million cash, ibili nyo yan ng bahay at lupa. Bibigyan sila ng cash and then i-convert sa bahay at lupa. Pagkakitaan sila, tumubo na dun sa bahay at lupa, nawalan pa ng property, nawalan pa ng kabuhayan yung IPs. Kasi nga po, ang sinasabi ng IPs, we don't need another house and lot. Meron nga kaming house and lot, pero wala naman kaming hanap buhay. Useless. Bakit hindi lang kami pabayaan dito sa aming lugar na dito na po kami pinanganak, dito na kami lumaki, bakit kami kailangan palayasin pa? So we don't need a house and lot. Kahit kubo-kubo lang kami nakatira, makapagtalim po kami sa paligid ng mga gulay, makakuha kami ng isda dyan sa mga ilog, okay na sa amin, Mr. Tulfo. Pero, binigyan nga kami ng pera, pero yung pera, i-convert po sa house and lot. I don't know kung sino po yung developer ng house and lot na yon, na para pang ino-offer kapalit ng pera nila ay magkakaroon sila ng house and lot. So parang in the end, maso-short change po ang ating mga pobreng IPs.
Sir, we do not have that information, and we would welcome receiving that information po. However, as I mentioned po, two government offices are talking to each other and then talking to us. So I believe po this issue with NCIP is a programmatic issue, and so needs to be taken up on its own po in terms of the treatment and the administration of the resources for the IP communities.
Thank you po, Madam Secretary. Kayo po mismo nagsabi, problematic issue. So, kailangan po, makialam na po kayo rito. Kailangan po, bilang Secretary ng DNR, alam niyo po lahat ng klaseng transaksyon na nagaganap kung saan apektado po yung ating mga IPs na may kinalaman po sa environment na jurisdiction po ninyo. And I really need you to focus your attention dito po sa kalagayan ng ating mga IPs. Because wala pong iba na makakatulong sa kanila kundi ating gobyerno. Paano na po kung yung mismo ating gobyerno na supposed to be na magpoprotekta sa kanilang mga karapatan, ito pa po mismo ang lumalapastangan sa kanilang mga karapatan. I want you to be on top of this, Madam Secretary.
Thank you very much po, Senator Tulfo. That is well taken.
Yan lamang po, Madam Secretary, for now. And I will wait po doon sa mga prinamis nyo na may provide yung mga dokumento. And then after that, then we will talk. And last, I would put it on record na si Madam Secretary Loizaga, siya po ay in favor na maipasa na po yung National Land Use Act. And you will work with us here in the Senate, including myself, na para maipaglaban, once and for all, maipasa na po yan. Kasi 4 na presidente na po ang gustong maipasa na yan. Priority bill po nila yan, pero hindi mapasa-pasa for whatever reason, I don't know. Pero kung kayo po ay susuporta, andyan po kayo, maging resource person po namin kayo, then I think this time around, may papasa po yung National Land Use Act para sa kapanan po ng taong bayan, para hindi lamang po para sa iilan yan. Okay? Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Mr. Senator. If I may just say, the flagship project of the DNR is the National Natural Resource Geospatial Database. This will allow us to map all the natural resources in the country.
Thank you.
And will be a great support for the Land Use Act.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Mr. President, maraming